60 years ago this week, there was a debate in City Hall about the Mill Creek Renewal Project in the area between Market Street and the rail yards and from Union Station to Grand. It had nothing to do with the people who'd been forced to move from what had long been one of the city's most densely populated black neighborhoods. No, the criticism in the Globe Democrat headline refers to those who felt the development of the cleared land just wasn't going fast enough. There was still plenty of confidence among city leaders that clearing Mill Creek had been a great idea. Mayor Raymond Tucker said it was a vital project, responsible in many ways for the total rebirth of St. Louis. It wasn't. Today, St. Louis University and Harris Stowe take up much of the cleared land. But in 1963, they were still talking about industrial and office development, and probably not about the far-reaching social consequences of uprooting thousands of people. But it's not as if there hadn't been problems that needed to be addressed.
This is the slum.
We don't use the word slum much anymore, but in the 40s and 50s it was clear that a lot of the old housing stock in St. Louis from the 1800s was in bad shape, especially in poor and black neighborhoods like Mill Creek.
Now, I'm not talking about some vast national problem with a lot of statistics and graphs. I'm talking about St. Louis, Missouri.
One of Channel 9's first serious programs, nearly 70 years ago, was about slum conditions. Apartments with holes in the floors and roofs, leaky water pipes, rats, lack of heat, overcrowding, outdoor toilets. We invited some residents to talk about what they were dealing with.
We've heard the experts, but now I want you to be the experts for us. You know these problems. You know more about them than any of us do. You live there.
They're paying because they're paying the rent, but they're just not getting the things that they should get.
Well, this bad rain that we just had, I've had to have buckets sitting all across the front inside the house.
This discussion took place before the Mill Creek project, and these folks from a different part of the city declared a slum area were hoping to find apartments in the new Pruitt-Igoe housing project. While there often was relocation involved, urban renewal was not so much about people, it was about land. The plan for Mill Creek was not just to tear down substandard housing, but everything, all the homes, businesses, and buildings, so that a large swath of land would be open to development that could compete with growing suburbs, and to make room for a new highway, now 4064. 60 years ago, Mayor Tucker said everyone would be happy if all this just went quicker. He said the slum clearance had been essential. Another official said we should never apologize for the demolition. The Post-Dispatch ran this photo of two women moving out of their Mill Creek homes, some of the last residents in the last remaining buildings in Mill Creek. That was 60 years ago, this week in St. Louis history.
Mill Creek is making a comeback of sorts, or at least getting recognition, and not just of the place, but of the people who live there. Take a look at this footage. As part of the city's greenway system, a monument now stands on Market Street at the new soccer stadium. It commemorates the once vibrant neighborhood and preserves the painful memories of its destruction. A formal dedication of the monument is scheduled next month, and among those in attendance will be Vivian Gibson. She's the author of The Last Children of Mill Creek. It's a memoir of Gibson's childhood there, and she joins us now to talk about it. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you.
Just now looking at this story, what kind of memories did that bring back for you?
Well, I heard the word slum, which is like a knife in my heart every time I hear it, because it was where I lived. It's where I went to school, where I went to church, where my friends were. And to hear it repeatedly referred to as a slum is hard for me to hear, even now.
A slum as opposed to a true community, which is what you experienced.
Exactly. It was a segregated community, but it was an enclave. We had everything there a regular neighborhood needed. And it's just very hard to think of it in those terms, or to hear our family referred to as slum dwellers, when in fact, many of the people who lived there rented from landlords, and we never heard about slum lords.
Indeed. It didn't start out as an all-black community.
That's
Like
true.
in many communities, you have ethnic groups moving in and moving out.
Exactly.
So what did it start out as?
Well, it's one of the older parts of the city. It's right down the center of the city. The creek that it's named for was where the railroad tracks that lead to Union Station once was. But it started off as Eastern European, as Europeans, Germans, Italians, Irish, all lived there as they came in as immigrants and moved out, and as they could move out, they could. Eventually, around the turn of the century, 1900, it became pretty much African-American community, populated by people coming up from the South in the Great Migration north.
Which was the case for your father. You
Yes.
tell the story in your book of how both your parents came to be
Yes.
in St. Louis, and especially for your father, this was a big opportunity.
This was a huge opportunity. He and his mother, he was an only child. His mother worked from sun up to sundown, and he virtually raised himself. He had to cook and chop wood and do house chores before going to school and after. But unfortunately, in his town, or even near his town, there was no high school for black children. Black children could only go to the 8th grade. They heard about this new school called Vashon High School in St. Louis, and they packed up and moved from Arkansas to St. Louis so that he could go to high school.
And your mother, it was quite a contrast in terms of their respective backgrounds. She came from a very genteel background.
Yes, she did in the South, and that's sometimes surprising to people that there would be a community called Gentile for Black people in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is where she came from. She was at Talladega College and came here for a summer break to visit a relative who was a school teacher, and met my father in Mill Creek. They spent some time together that summer, and I think she came back again for winter break soon after they married, and years later they had 8 children.
You have done a TEDx talk. It's now online.
Yes.
It looks like a nice complement to the book because you can go into a lot of the detail
Yes.
about the entire backstory, the life and death of that community.
The life and death of the community, but I really wanted to talk about the people. Again, when you're just described as living in a slum and being slum dwellers, I think what was lost was the sense of community, the neighborhood, the institutions we have, the churches. There were 42 churches in Mill Creek, and only one was not demolished in that neighborhood. So I'm happy that this book has been able to shine a light on what was lost, what was just eliminated, which was that community.
I adore this book. I love the descriptions of your childhood. It's a story of so many people. It's an American story.
Yes, it is an American story, and I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Thank you so much, Vivian, for joining us again. The name of the book is The Last Children of Mill Creek.